Okay, welcome back everyone. Hope you have had lunch, like very nice lunch today. So just very quick introduction. My name is Ving. So I'm actually another graduate student from UT Austin. So I know like many people are doing like business and information analysis or something, but my major is molecular biology. Okay, so I'm doing like genetics and genomics and a lot of stuff like data analysis using Linux and R for my genomics data. And a lot of stuff I need to do like making very nice figures for the publications. So I don't know, but maybe if you guys have to do something like that. No, yeah. So it's really a lot of variations, but I hope that maybe I can help a little bit for you guys. So before going to very quick introduction, I just want to make sure that you guys all have the R and RStudio installed in your computer. So just quickly go to the course website and then check it. And please put the green note, like a sticky note, if you have R and RStudio installed in your computer, okay? So I will go very quickly what we are going to cover this afternoon and maybe tomorrow. So basically, today afternoon, we are going to cover like very brief introduction about R. So the first thing is like, what is R, what is RStudio, and how you can do kind of like objects and assignments and data frames, which is like the next part, like starting with the data. So basically, you are doing like how to subset some values from data frames in R. So pretty much like a lot of more information, but today it's just like very basic R. And tomorrow morning we are going to cover like how you can manipulate data frame using R. And more like interesting part is how you can create the very nice plot. So it's called like data visualization using R. And tomorrow afternoon, Kevin will cover SQL and how to use R and SQL. Okay, so yeah, so that's the tomorrow part. So basically, have everyone like has experience with R before? Can you like let me see how many people had experience with R? Very tiny, very little, okay. But it's like almost people has experience with R, right? Okay, so what is R? So basically R is like statistical computing. It's not only program language, but it's also statistical, or we call like graphical language. So I personally like R because it's helped me a lot for my research. So basically, it provides a lot of like statistical analysis as well. So you can do a lot of stuff like linear regression or sometimes like machine learning using R. And the best part that I like is data visualization. So I personally think the plot, like you can make a lot of plot in R, which is much nicer than Python. Maybe some people don't agree with me because they love Python. But this is my personal thinking, okay? So the term R is used to refer like both programming language and also the software that interprets the script. So you can think about what is the difference between R and another program like Tableau or the other thing. So in Tableau, you can use like just pointing and clicking, right? So in R, you basically write the real script. So because it's a programming language. Okay, so this is RStudio. So RStudio basically is like integrate environment developed. So basically, this is one way that you can interact with R using RStudio. I can show you how it looks, but it's much nicer to use RStudio to write the script. The reason is, let me show you guys. So this is like how RStudio looks like. So basically, you have 4 different panels in the RStudio. If you open your RStudio, you can see that. So the first one is like the source, where you can write the script. Okay. So the second one, the console. Basically, you can do something like, 3 plus 5. So this is a console where you can write the script as well. But the difference is in the console, you can just like write down and then plus enter. So when you enter, you can get the value. But in the script, because you want to write the script and then after that you have to do one more step. For example, in this case, if you put enter, it will not give you the value because this is script. So you have to put one more step. So in the case of the mark, it will be like comment return. Okay, so that's the difference between the source and the console. And the third panel is like just the environment. So this case, I created a lot of objects here. So whenever you create any object, it will be displayed here. And the last one is a files, plots, package, and help, and viewer. So for example, you can see, I will explain a little bit later, but file is something like your, where you can see like a lot of like directories or folders, and where you can keep your data. And then you have plots whenever you make, for example, tomorrow we are going to make like ggplot using the ggplot2, so you can see how the plot looks like. So basically it's like outcome of your script. And then the other part is like help. So it's very nice function here. I can explain a little bit later. Okay, so let's see. So that's RStudio. So this is very nice example of the plot that you can get from this script and how the console looks like. And this is like the workspace. Okay, so that's RStudio. This is my personal experience. I had very hard time at the beginning to learn R because I was like you, like graduate student, and I encountered my projects, and then I decided like, should I learn R or I just give my data to the expert and then they can do it. So I just recognized I need to learn it because this is really necessary for my future research and career as well. But it's not easy. It was painful for me. It's really painful. But the reason why we have to learn R, because, so firstly, it's like, as I mentioned before, it's not only like pointing and clicking, right? It's like programming language. The second part is really great for reproducibility, especially when you do the research. You have the data set and you want to, like another person wants to look at your data, whether they can reproduce it or not. And I had a lot of problems with Excel, but maybe many people can control it. So this is my personal experience. And also one of the other problem is, so in my field like biology, there's something like, sometimes you cannot repeat other people's research. That happened a lot. Okay, so I'm really great for this. And it's like has more than 1,000 packages. So you can apply to a lot of different fields, not only biology, but other like chemistry, business, and this is really great for business as well. I can show you why. So the next one is I produce very high quality graphics. This is called like graphical language. And it has like very large and welcoming community. So one of the reasons is R is free, right? So you don't need to pay for it. And not only free, but it's also like very open source and cross-platform, means you can actually design and create another package with your name. Okay. So let me show you these two very interesting articles. So the first one is about one of my experience. So the first one is about biology, and the second one is about learning R for business. Okay. These are two very interesting articles. So this article basically they show what are the reasons why we need to use R for business. So they basically compare the learning curve and then the capability rating between like R, Python, SAS, MATLAB, or Tableau or Excel. So you can see like the learning curve for R. So the lower level means like it takes very long time and more difficult to learn. But it has like higher capability for business. The reason is, so basically this is the best overall qualities because, so let's see, it's a data science for non-computer scientists. Do you agree with that?
It was written by statisticians at the University of Auckland.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
So,
So when they talk about Python, maybe it's like general programming language developed by software engineers. But if like, for example, in my case, I'm not software engineer, I'm not like computer scientist, so I prefer to learn R. I'm learning Python as well for my research. So R is like statistical programming language developed by scientists. And so this is just like one of the examples that we are going to cover tomorrow as well. The learning R is easy with tidyverse. So tidyverse, they have basically some package that you can manipulate the data, like dplyr or tidyr. So you can manipulate the data. And the second package is ggplot2, so you can do a lot of data visualization. Okay, so they are all in the tidyverse package that you can see here. Okay, so this one is like more complicated because it talks a lot about another package in R, but basically it has like data manipulation, working with the data types, visualization, programming, and communication. So I had my friends who is doing like business and he wants to learn R because most of his time is like communication. So he wants a better way to communicate with the customer and how to show the data. So graphical language is like more powerful for him. So that's why he decided to learn R. Okay. Yeah, so basically that's it. And someone asking about Shiny. So R can work with Shiny app like more interactive way, but we are not going to cover Shiny today. It's pretty much work to cover it for like one day cover in R. But if you have like basic idea about R, so you can maybe learn more about Shiny app.
and I was planning on doing some research about Shiny tonight. So I'm pretty good at evaluating whether a source is bunk or not, and be able to give you some sources about that.
Yeah, maybe we can send, if you are interested in Shiny, maybe we can send you like what kind of like materials or maybe reference. So you can maybe go deep into that. The last one is like our community support. So as I mentioned before, here's like they show very nice, not this one, community support like the conference, the meetups, and social web and the website. Okay, so let's see. So getting set up with R, I'm going to cover these 3 parts. So the first one is organizing your working directory. Second one is like how you can interact with R. And the last one is like how you can get help from when you have trouble with R. Okay, so this is very basic introduction. Let's see. Okay, so can anyone cannot open the RStudio? Can you open the RStudio right now? Let me clear this one first. So the first thing I want to do is, sorry, I have a lot of stuff here. So we want to create your own working directory that for your own project. Okay, so it's better to put like everything in one single directory. So you can do that. So you can, there are 2 ways you can do that. So easier way that click onto like new folder and then, no, actually let's do this one first. So let's go to the file and then click to like new project. So you have a lot of projects going on and then you can just create a new project. And then let me save it first. So new project and then maybe data carpentry. Okay, so the next step is just go to the course website and then download the code handout because that one is very, maybe very necessary and very helpful when you have trouble with the code. So I will just go to the course website.
Is it the files? You know the files together?
It's the Kevin, right? This one. And this website. So you go to this website. Let me send you the link.
I got it.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll drop that link at the bottom.
Yeah. So you go to this website and download the code handout. And then you can put into your working directory. Okay. So the next step is we are going to create like multiple folders. So the reason why we have to create the multiple folder like data or output or maybe just figures because tomorrow we are going to create a lot of like figures and different data frames. So if you want to create the different figures and then you are going to put that into figure output. So it's up to you guys. You can create like multiple folder. It's just like organizing your working directory. Okay, so something like that. You have your working directory and then you can have like data or data output or documents or script or figure output. Okay. So you can make it by going to the R, and then there are 2 ways. So you can make new folder here, for example, data. And then you can see the new folder here, right? Maybe I can put it a little bit bigger. And again, maybe I can create another folder like figure output. Okay. So here, are we doing okay? So right now my RStudio has only 3 panels. What I'm missing here? the source, right? Yeah, so I'm going to create a new script here, R script. So it's going here. Okay. So you want to save the script because the reason why R is reproducible because the next time when you have the same or different data set, you want to use the same script and then run it again. So after writing the script, you want to save the script in maybe in your working directory. Okay. So let me clear this one first. One of the important things is before running the code, you have to make sure that where you are or which directory you are now. So you can do that by doing like get wd. Okay. So right now I'm in the desktop and data cabin-tree. So this is my own working directory. So you can check like your own working directory, but if you don't have that file in your own working directory, you cannot run it, or you cannot open that file. Okay. So one of very interesting things I'm gonna show you. So otherwise, if you have the trouble with like moving between the directory, you can use another command like set wd. So this command will choose, so you have to put which directory that you want to work on. So for example, I already have here, but maybe I can just choose this directory and then put it here. So this is how it looks like. So you can set whichever you want. For example, you can set desktop as your working directory. But the most important thing that you need to have your data and all of your script that you want to run in that working directory. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Okay? So I'm going to put again. So this is my working directory. Okay, so the next part is how you can interact with R. I already explained a little bit, so I just want to mention again. So RStudio allows you to execute the command directly from the script, but it's better to type the command we want in the script editor, and then after that you can save the script. So here, if you type like, so if you try to type like only enter or return, it's not gonna work, right? It will not display any like 8 value, but it's gonna work here. 3 + 5, enter, right? So in Mark, it's like command return for the script. So if you put like command return, it will display here. So the other way that if you want to move around from the source to the console, you can use Control 1 or Control 2. You may try, like for example, if you want to move from the source to the console, you can use like Control 2. So it's now going down to the console now. And if you try like Control 1, it's going up. So this is a way that you can move around between this, like the source and the console. Okay? So that's very basic. The last part is like how to ask the questions. And if you have any trouble with R, how you can do that. So the easiest thing is in R, you can choose like this is help part. So basically you can put, for example, bar plot. If you want to learn about bar plot, so they will show you like the description and how to use it. Okay? Or the other way you can choose like bar plot. Sorry. Question mark. No, let's do that. Question mark and bar plot. So it will display here. So these are two easiest way to check.
What was that option?
You go to help.
Oh, to help.
Yeah, and then just type which function that you are looking for. So maybe box plot. So they show you how to use and how you can write any command for box plot. Okay, and question mark bar plot is another way. The other way that you just want to remind yourself about the name of the arguments. So for example, you can do, so I'm looking for the linear regression. Sorry. So this show you like the function and how you can use that. Okay.
So within parentheses, linear model asking
Yeah, like how that
how's that
you
work?
can use that function.
And
and-
the command is ARGS.
Yeah. Okay, so anyone use Stack Overflow here? Yes? Yeah, Kevin, of course. So what do you feel about Stack Overflow?
It can be helpful. Sometimes they don't explain why enough. But once you get a lot of these tools down
Mm-hmm.
and know what questions to ask,
Yes.
it will help a lot. 'Cause that's one of the things. The hard thing is knowing what questions to ask.
That's exactly. So, yeah, the most important thing that you know what you are asking, and you have to write, because people normally spend time to answer your questions, but if you put something like very specifically to your arrow, and they are not gonna run it in their computer, right? So need to have like very easier way to ask the questions on Stack Overflow. So this is like very large community where all the people ask about programming language, R, Python, and other stuff. So you want to put maybe R tag in your questions as well. Okay. Yeah, so some people use like Stack Overflow a lot, but and also there's another website they call like let me see. So this is like Stack Overflow, and you put the R tag with your questions. And sometimes I feel like sometimes I just Google it with R, and then it will display in Stack Overflow. That's easier way for me. So if you go to like Stack Overflow, there's a lot of stuff you don't know how to ask. So I just Google it with R and choose Stack Overflow. That's the easiest way for me.
Yeah, Google has a good search on Stack Overflow.
Yeah. And the other way is this one, but let me show you again. This like introduction to R also good, but it's like very dense because there's a lot of information. So maybe you can check it out. And another one is R. I can show you. Frequently asked questions on R. but again, it's also very dense.
These documents are not really made to be read straight through. But
Yeah.
if you know what question to ask, you press Control F and can search through the whole FAQ.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Okay. So last but not least, like when you ask the questions on Stack Overflow, so it's better to put like session info. So that's how you can do here. Let's see. So session info will show you like what kind of like version of the R or what kind of like package you are using. So they can look into it and see what kind of problem that you have. So maybe it's easier for them to answer your questions. Okay. So before moving into like introduction to R, is there any questions? Very background.
So the part of the console, how does those codes appear from the bar? I mean, I know you're writing on the top the bar plot, and then at the bottom of the console, it's supposed to execute, right?
Yeah. So in this case, are you using Mark, right?
Yeah.
So in this case, so if you write anything in the console, right, you just put enter. But in this case, it's not running directly. You have to put command return.
Command return?
Yeah.
Oh.
So this is like extra step in the source. By that way, you are not like, if you put anything and then just put enter, so it's run everything, right?
Okay.
So you can, the way I think of it is this top part is like my scratch pad. And then and then you have your cursor set up here. And just
Oh, I see.
Okay. Let's move to the second part. Is like introduction to R. So I'm going to go very quickly about define in R what is the object, what is like assign, what is the function, arguments, options, and how to assign the values to the objects in R. How you can learn, how you can name the objects, how to use a command in your script, and how to call the functions and use the arguments to change the default options. And also, we are going to learn vectors and how to manipulate the contents in the vector, as well as like subset and extract the values from the vectors. And the last part is like how to deal with the missing data. Okay? So let's go to here. Let me clear it first. So you can use like Control L to clear the console if it's like very messy to you. Okay. So the first thing that we want to do is like create the objects. So objects, sometimes people use in statistical analysis, they use variables. So it's the same definition. Some people use variations, but in this case, we call it like objects. So for example, if you want to create the object's name is weight, right? So this is the name of your object. And then you want to assign the value to these objects. So you use, in the case of Mark, they use option minus. And I think in PC, they use alternative and minus. Let me
And
go back.
The hotkey for that is
It's
minus.
yeah, alt minus in PC, and in Mac it's like option minus. Okay. So this is a way that how you can assign the value to the objects. So on the left one is a object weight, right? So now you can assign maybe 55, right? So you can say 55 goes to the weight, right? Or you can do another thing like x get the value 3. So 3 goes into x. So it's like your object and you have different value. Okay? So in case of the object name, you can give like any name, for example, like temperature, weight, species, sex, or it's up to like how many variables and what kind of variables you have. Maybe the salary or month or year or date. Okay, but the way that I do normally do with the name of the object is that I don't, so the first thing that they cannot start with a number. So you can, for example, I can use the object name like x2, but the 2x is not it's not valid. Okay, so, and also R is like case sensitive. So for example, if you have like weight, something like this, and this one. So for example, let's see. So these two are two different objects. And also we don't normally use kind of like fundamental function in R. For example, it's not good idea to use like your object as if, else, or loop, something like that. And sometimes I can use like, for example, with underscore something like animal. So this is, sometimes I use underscore, but it's like your preference, you can use. But I don't normally use dot. The reason is because you can see like when you encounter with R, there's a lot of future function that you use dot. So it's better not to use.
Actually doing, seems like weight.animal might throw an error. No, it doesn't.
No, yeah. Because I didn't create any object.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some reference, let me show you, where you can, here. So this is one of the reference how you can, this is written by Hadley Wickham as well. This is like Tidyverse style guide. Another one is Google R style guide. So you can check like how's the good one and how's the bad one looks like. Okay. A lot of stuff like spacing, object names, argument names, indenting, long line assignment, naming, and comments. So this is really good reference. Okay, so that's the object. Let's go back here and clear it. So now can you try to put this object and maybe assign to 55. So what happened here is that you didn't see, it didn't print anything, right? So what happened if you put weight, let's see, and then run it? So it's print out 55, right? So whenever you create the object, R does not print anything. But you can force R to print the value by using the parentheses you can put here before the object name. Then when you put it, it will print out. It works, right? Here, right? That's one way. And the other way is just like call the typing the object name. For example, that's what I did. So it also print out. Okay. Let me move this one first. So now you already have the object's weight here. You can see it on the top right. And now you can do some other like calculation with that function, with that objects. For example, you can do like weight and then 2.2. So this is a value. Okay. So let's create another object value, for example, in kilograms. And option minus 57.5. So this is second objects that you have. Okay? And let's create another object called weight in pound. And this one is assigned into 2.2 times weight kilograms. So another tip here. So in R, they have like auto completion. So for example, in this case, when you put like this object names, and you don't want to, like, if you have like very long object name, and sometimes you can put it like misspelling or something like that, right? So you don't want to like get that trouble, you can use the tab. So tab, if you put tab, it will like automatically, so not weak, sorry. Tab here, and then you can choose which values or which objects that you want. Okay. Sorry. What did I do? I did something wrong here. Underscore. Okay. So this is a new object that I have, weight in pound. So now let's change the weight in kilogram to 100. Now it's not like 57.5, but you want to assign that to different value. So what happened to this one? What do you think? What value they should get? Like 126.5 or 220? 220? Let me run it. It's 126.5. So why is that? So you assign this, right? But this object is belong to this, right? So now if you want to do, you need to do this. So you can do, sorry, wow. And now if you run with in pound again, what's the value? So that's how it works. That means that when you assign the new value to one object, but it will not change the value of another object. Okay. Are we good? It's simple, right? Okay, so the other part is you write this script and there's a lot of stuff. So you want to put a comment like what we are doing. So for example, you can put here with this symbol. So this is the comment. So anything behind this will not run. So this is like how you can organize your script. So this is the second test. Okay. So now we are going to do like very simple practice. I'm going to do it here. You have another object like mass, and then you assign the value for it 7.5. No, it doesn't matter. Let me put the questions into the ether part. Oops. So this is like very simple practice. You want to create like mass objects, age objects, and another new objects. And then after that, calculate the mass index. So the question is, what is the values after each statement? Yeah.
So we do that?
Yeah.
That's the second test, right?
This very simple exercise.
I think that it's a copy to the, sorry about that.
So how you can get the value of the object? So for example, you run this code, right? And then you create a new object mass here. How can this place here? Just put mass, right? So if this is a value. Okay, so we can try h. And then you run h. So h now is 122. And now you create another same object name, but using the previous object. So what happened here with the mass? 95, right? And if you run this, and the new h will show up. So what do you think about the mass index? What is the value? How much?
95.
Let me try. Is that correct? So do you think they will get this mass from 95 or from 47.5? 95, right? Okay. So that's basically about objects and values. So the second thing we want to do is the functions and arguments. So this, let me show you. So this is very simple example of the function. So in this case, the value of a is given to the function square root and return the value of b. So I can show you another example of the function which is pretty simple. So you do round 3.4155, something like that. So round of this number will give you number 3. So this is like example of the function, and they have one argument here. But in this case, let's search for the round to see how it works. So you can type round in the help. So this is how round works. Like you have round the number and the digits. So digit 0 is like kind of like default. If you didn't put any digits here, and then if you try to run round this number, it gives you number 3, right? So I can do another way is that I put digits equal to maybe 2. And it shows like this. Oh, sorry. Comma. Right? 3.14. So this is like how, it's like very simple function, but this function can take multiple arguments. The other way you can check round function is you can put arguments and put round here. So this is how it works. Okay. So the other way is that you okay? So if you put like everything in the order, like the digits, the number first and then digits, sometimes you don't really need to put digits here. And it will work. But if you put 2 here and 3, something like that, can we use this way? So in this case, they will change the argument order, right? So we need to put, if you want to keep only the value, we need to keep the same order. Otherwise, you have to put digits here. Something like that. Right? Okay? So that's the function and arguments. You are going to see like a lot of more complicated and complex, but I'm not going to go through like very complicated functions today because this is kind of like very introduction part. So the next thing that we are going to do is a vector and data type. So any idea about the vector in R? Some people with the knowledge of R, any idea about vectors in R? No? No? So this is how it looks like. For example, I have weight, vector, right? And then I'm going to give like some value here, 82. And then how it looks. So this is a vector. But this is one type of vector. So vector is like very common and basic data type in R. And it's composed of series of values. So in this case, it's a numeric values, right? So this is like numeric vector. But you can create another vector called, for example, animals. Some animals that you like. Let's see what's the difference here. I use a double quotation here, right? And maybe red. Not my favorite, but dog. So this is another vector. So you run it, and now you call animals. So this is another vector. So this vector is also a series of values, but in this case, this is characters, not a number. Okay, so the quotation here is really important because if you don't use this, for example, let's try here, right? Let's see what happened. Object mouse not found. So if you don't use the quotation, I will treat it as the objects. And because you don't have any objects called mouse, so it will run like arrow. So that's really important part. Put the quotation here. And this is enable vectors. So the next part is how to check the contents of vector. So one way that you want to see how many values you have in that vector. So you can use like length. So this is a function. And you put the vector name after the length. So for example, you want to check how many animals here. So this is 4, right? Or maybe you can use length of the weight. Right? So this is one way to check the content of the vector, to see how many elements in the particular vector. And the other ways, as I mentioned before, there are many different types of vector. So it can be like numerical characters or sometimes like logical. So for example, logical vector, I can show you. You create another one. True, false. So this is like logical vector. And one way to check like what type the vector that you have, you can use class function. And then put the vector name. For example, I put animal. What will it show? Character, right? And what happened to maybe the weight? Let's try weight. This one. Numeric, right? So that's the second way that check the content of the vector. And the third way is like you want to see overview of the structure of the objects. So you can use structure, str, and put maybe animals. So this is like very overview of the vector. You have character 1 to 4 and the name of the elements in that vectors. So you see like it's very simple here, but this is really useful when you have like very large data, right? Because we have only like 4 elements in your vector right now. And so the next question is, if you have 4 different elements in the vector now, and you want to add one more element into the vector, what can you use? So let's say you have this, and then you are going to use C. So C function, and then you add another element into the old vector. So firstly, just put the old vector first. So it's weight, right? And now what you're gonna add? For example, 90. And run it. So what's the new vector looks like? You see it? So now you have new element in the old vector. So right now they have 5 different elements. So what happens if you put, let's see, if you don't put it here, but if you put it here? Is that okay? No? Okay, so let's run it.
The order doesn't matter.
Yeah. And also remember here we already add 190. and now you add another 90. So this is kind of like, sometimes it's messy. If you just like run one like the new objects, and then the second line you run the same object name with that object, then it's gonna like mess up your vector. Okay. So yeah, so this is basically very basic idea about the vector in R, which is like one kind of like very simple R data type. So there is another kind of like vector types, for example, logical, integer, or complex, but we are not going to go through today. One way you can check so there's another type of the data type in R. For example, like there's a list, there's matrix, vector, data frames, and arrays. So today we are just going to use, I think, vector for this lesson, and the next one we are going to go through data frame. Okay, so now let's do like very kind of like quick exercise. So let me post it. Into the ether pod. So next exercise in the line 187. So we are going to have 4 different vectors here, and in this case it's not only like number, but it also has another character or logical with number and logical with characters, and sometimes it has like quotation mark with a number. So what do you think, what type of vector is here? You try to run it and then see how it looks.